what seeds should we start indoors and not start indoors, and why do we want to do those particular seeds?
So many people start seeds indoors to get a jump start on the garden season. Areas where short growing season, or maybe you just want to make sure you're growing a certain variety of vegetable, or to extend your season on either side. So there's some crops you do not want to start indoors, and there's many reasons for this, especially things like potatoes. You're going to start those from a seed potato. Sunchokes, those are started from the tuber.
Tuber, just like the potatoes are, yeah. And then,
carrots and radishes, those are very tender seedlings, so you want to, and radishes only take about 30 days to grow, so you want to make sure that you are just planting those, direct sowing them. Beets, you can start in thin, but it's better for direct sow. So beets are a cluster seed, so if you look at a beet seed, it looks like a little chunky ball of dirt, but it's a cluster seed. So there's several seeds in that one cluster. So when your seeds do sprout, you want to trim them back.
And that holds true for the beet seed. The beet seed is related to the Swiss chard seed, which is the same family that has that cluster, but you don't have to thin the Swiss chard out.
Swiss chard you don't want to thin out.
Yeah, because the more prolific plants, the more plants you get, the more Swiss chard you get. But the beets you got to, otherwise you're going to have very small to almost no bulb development, and that's the purpose why most people grow the beets.
And then these hardier root crops, parsnips, turnips, rutabagas, you don't want to start those indoors. You want to just direct sow them. And you have a tip for starting the carrots.
Yeah, well, with the carrot, with all these root crops, like you said, that if we start them indoors, and there are videos online of people doing this, you're removing your you're taking the roots out and you're damaging the roots, which is the purpose of the plant, and it's just easier to direct sow at the correct time, and so you don't have to transition them outside, do that hardiness procedure. With the carrots, the easy way to do that is if you're in a raised bed or a garden or anything outside, make your drill or your trench, plant your seeds, dust the seeds over with a small amount of soil, because the seeds are not that large and do not need to be buried very deeply, and then water it in, and then cover it with a piece of cardboard or a 2x8 or some lumber, and what that accomplishes is preventing moisture from wicking away from the seed coat, and then it germinates quicker and more successfully, a higher rate of germination, because the seed is not just exposed to the elements, it's actually protected with that cardboard or that lumber. And then after about 21 days, which is the typical germination rate for carrots, you want to remove that board. You'll see a bunch of white stringy things. You're good to go. Not a problem, and that really increases your germination rate for your carrots by about 80%. And this holds true if you want to do it with parsnips as well. Those are some more of a challenge to some people getting those started as well.
Mm-hmm. So you also root crops such as cucumber, melons.
Well, they're not root crops, but the viney crops.
Viney crop, cucumber, melons, squash, pumpkins, things of that nature, zucchini as well. And then direct sowing things like corn, beans, whether that be pole beans or bush beans, those need to be direct sown as well. And then peas, and Swiss chard, as we talked about in regards to the beets and how they're of the same family. And then there's seeds that are good to start indoors, and actually my department director came up to me saying, asked what we had started, and she had wanted to know if we started our tomatoes yet, and I said no, not at this point, but because she wants to start hers. So, but many of you may have already started your tomatoes.
Now, when we say these are the best to start indoors, you don't have to start anything indoors. You can go two options. You can direct sow them, and Holly, you can tell your story, or you can go buy them at your independent garden center. You don't have to do any of these.
A lot of times people do it because it gets them in the mood for gardening in the spring. It's something, or late winter or whatever. But also maybe their independent garden center doesn't carry a certain variety of, say, tomato or brassica, or
you have a better selection.
Yeah, you can buy the seeds, you can start them. So if you're like a big fan of the Cherokee Purple tomato or something, and you can't buy that through a start, then you can start indoors. But you can direct sow it, and that's what I grew up doing. I grew up in the city in Southwest Milwaukee, and we would just throw our seeds in the ground Memorial Day weekend, and yeah, that's what we did, and that's how we grew.
No starting anything.
I had no clue about seed starts. Yeah.
So let's talk about what does well if you choose to start plants indoors here. We can talk, obviously, tomatoes work very well. Anything in the brassica family.
So that's like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kohlrabi.
Yep. Peppers, they do take a while to germinate, but they do work, and we find it very successful because you do get that variety that you do not necessarily get at the garden center. Eggplants the same way. Leeks, herbs, leeks and onions. Herbs, those are very patient plants because they take sometimes up to 30 days to germinate, and you think nothing's going to happen, and then finally they do emerge from the soil.
I want to say real quick about the kohlrabi is that you either want to start it from seed yourself, or you want to purchase it from the independent garden center. Starting it directly in the ground as a seed can be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, we've never had great success with that direct sow with the kohlrabi, so we're going to focus on the starting them inside because you're not damaging the root, because the root is not the edible portion. If you've never seen a kohlrabi, it's an alien type of vegetation where it's a little stem and then it looks like a baseball, and then it's got these long tentacles of leaves and limbs coming off of it. So, and there's a red variety, a burgundy variety, and then a greenish light green variety. And there's small ones and there's gigantic ones that can get the size of almost a volleyball in some instances. So. Other things that we can start indoors, we can start in any type of device.
Yeah, you want to think about this. So this would be something like you could use one of those party cups. If you yourself like to indulge on the weekend, enjoy the party cup lifestyle. Or you can use like sour cream containers, yogurt containers. The biggest thing to think about is the size of the container. So you may see something online, social media. It's like, oh, I can start my seeds in egg cartons. Well, you can, but if you think about the size of an egg carton, each little egg carton spot, those are very small, so those seeds are going to dry out faster, and also you're going to have to probably transplant them pretty quickly.
Yeah, the goal is to plant and the more soil you have, the slower it's going to dry out. The less soil you have, the quicker it's going to dry out. As well, it has the amount of humidity in your home or your greenhouse or your garage or your shed, wherever you're starting these at, greatly dictates the evaporation rate of your soil. Now, we use the Root Maker grow trays, and we've got a coupon, TWVG, and you get 10% off your order. They've got grow bags as well as these very unique, durable cells, planting trays of 18, 32, 64, 72, 105 cells, and they air prune the roots. And instead of getting the root bound or the wraparound roots, they have a very vigorous root system when you grow them in the Root Maker tray, and the more roots you have on a plant, the healthier and happier it is. So that's what we use. Yeah.
If you go to the website, look at the Root Maker trays, you can see how the bottoms are different than like a plastic container or whatever.
Well, what kind of soil, what kind of medium are we starting our seeds in, or what is best?
So you want to start your seeds in, you can do a potting soil, a potting mix, a seed starting mix. You can do direct compost, just directly into compost. But you want to make sure that you have some sort of slow release fertilizer, especially if it's a potting mix or a seed starting mix. Or you want to make sure, and you also make sure it has some sort of, it can be it drains well, but holds moisture.
Yeah, if you use the peat pellets, those are great, really well, works well. But you want to feed those plants with some type of slow release liquid fertilizer or compost tea, whatever the recommended rate is. Go a quarter of the strength, because after about 3 to 4 weeks, the plant has used up all the energy that nature has produced for it in the seed coat. And now it has no nutrient value in those peat pellets, and the plants begin to look spindly and sick because they don't have anything to feed off of. Also, let's talk about the option of heat mats.
Sure. So heating mats are not necessary unless maybe you're growing in a cooler area, like a garage, basement,
greenhouse,
breezeway. Then, like, if you're growing it in your home and you're about 68 to 70 whatever degrees, you're fine. But if it's in an area that might be cooler, the temperature might be inconsistent, that heat mat is going to aid the germination. And you don't want to use like a heating pad from your bathroom that you put on your back when it's sore. You want to use an actual heat mat. and then that way you can control the temperature, and it's evenly distributed.
And finally, grow lights, not necessarily required, but do make a tremendous difference if you are limited on ambient light. And when we talk about a grow light, we talk about using the Happy Leaf LED grow lights from Happy Leaf LED. They have a very well spectrum lights availability and a good footprint and a great warranty, and they don't lose intensity like tube lights, and we have found nothing but phenomenal success with them. But you can use a south-facing window, a 3-porch window. We grew for years out of a west-facing window. We just rotated the plants every evening as they grew towards the light. So some things to keep in mind when it comes to what to start indoors, what not to start indoors.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.